Co-presented by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist. Co-presented by Panasonic. Create today, enrich tomorrow. Co-powered by the bold look of Cola. Co-powered by Samsonite. Tested like Samsonite. Indian Oil. Pehle Indian, phir oil.
Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today, your prime-time destination news. Newsmakers talking points. The big talking point tonight, Judiciary versus Modi government. It's become a daily headline. Tonight we'll be joined by the country's foremost jurist. Fali Nariman tells us what's the road ahead. That's coming up. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9 tonight. The Centre versus Supreme Court showdown over the collegium system intensifies. Law Minister Kiran Rijiju says making IB raw reports public by the Supreme Court is a matter of grave concern. Top jurist Fali Nariman tells India Today an emergency-like confrontation is now being created. Congress MP Digvijay Singh renews his attack against the Modi government over surgical strike. Rahul Gandhi and senior leaders distance themselves from his remarks. Rahul calls it ridiculous. BJP Modi film storm rages in India. Kerala Congress and CPIM decide to go ahead and screen a controversial documentary across the state on Republic Day. ABVP files a complaint over Hyderabad University screening. 45 days since the MCD poll in the national capital, still no Delhi mayor chosen. Chaos, sloganeering and protest means another delay in the battle between AAP and the BJP. Wrestlers claim the sports ministry didn't consult them while forming the probe panel led by Olympian boxer Mary Kom to investigate sexual harassment allegations against Federation chief, warned that they would go on a dharna again. Out on parole, rape and murder convict Ram Rahim cuts a cake with a sword during a satsang attended by BJP leaders. RRR gets Oscar nomination for the song Natu Natu in the Best Original Song category. India's All That Breathes and the Elephant Whisperers also nominated in the documentary category. And 3 dead in Lucknow after a 5-story residential building collapses. NDRF team of 45 Jawans and UP police conduct rescue ops. And India beats New Zealand by 90 runs to sweep the 3-match ODI series. Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill slam centuries. India takes top spot in ODI rankings. It's almost now become a daily ritual. No end to the tug of war between the government and the judiciary. Today, while speaking at an event at the Tees Hazari Court Complex, Kiran Rijiju had pointed out that judges do not have to contest elections or face public scrutiny. Today, Mr. Rijiju questioned the manner in which IB and raw reports were being released in Supreme Court resolutions. His remarks have come amidst the escalating tensions between the judiciary and the executive, tensions that threaten a breakdown in the constitutional separation of powers. Tonight we'll be joined by the country's foremost jurist, Fali Nariman, on what's the way ahead. But first, a top story on just why is this confrontation escalating. Take a look.
The face-off between the judiciary and executive is moving up the escalation ladder every day. Union Law Minister Kiran Rijiju on Tuesday criticized the Supreme Court Collegium's decision to publicize the government's objections to some names proposed for appointment as High Court judges.
Secret or sensitive reports of the RAW or IB in public domain is a matter of grave concern which I will react in appropriate time. Today is not appropriate time. I can say this much, that if the concerned officer who is working for the nation in disguise or in a secretive mode, in a very secretive location, will think twice if tomorrow his or her reports are going to be in the public domain.
Last week, in an unprecedented move, the Collegium, while reiterating 5 names for the High Courts, has revealed the centre's objections to their names. The objections raised included sexual orientation of a candidate and social media posts by 2 others. The Collegium also listed their reasons to hold their ground. Over the last few weeks, the Law Minister has taken many pot shots at the Judiciary over the Collegium system of appointments. Rijiju had cited former Delhi High Court Judge R.S. Sodhi's charge that the Judiciary has hijacked the Constitution.
Once there is an interpretation of by the Supreme Court of the Constitution, unless that is altered or modified, and the state has ways and means to do it by applying to the Supreme Court, but unless that is done, so long as the judgment stands, courts being the final interpreters of the Constitution, that view must prevail and must be respected.
Nation seems to be on one side, the entire country, and Supreme Court seems to be on one side. You see, the Supreme Court has to abide by the Constitution, and the collegium system being followed by the Supreme Court is unconstitutional. There is no provision in the Constitution about the collegium system.
The opposition has waded in, targeting the government over the issue. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal accused the union government of trying to take control of the judiciary. Congress leader and lawyer Manish Tiwari called Minister Rijiju's frequent potshots an attempt to demolish what exists. Even though the law minister appeared to diffuse the situation, saying that there is no Mahabharat between the centre and the collegium, it remains to be seen which of the two will be the first to blink.
Law Minister Kiren Rijiju has gone on to call it a serious and grave concern that the communication between the centre and the collegium has been put out in the public domain, and has also cited his concerns, saying that this might discourage prospective candidates from taking up judgeship at a later stage. It remains to be seen what will be the next twist in this long-standing saga between the centre as well as the judiciary over the issue of appointment of High Court and Supreme Court judges. With the Law Today team in New Delhi, this is Nalini Sharma for India Today.
Hello and welcome to this India Today special. At a time when there is a tug of war between the executive and the judiciary, particularly over the manner in which judges are appointed under the collegium system, what is the road ahead? Who better to tell us that than the country's foremost jurist, the eminence gris of the judiciary, Fali Nariman, 94 years young, 72 years in the judiciary, and as I said, the foremost jurist in the country, Mr. Nariman.
No, not at all. But yes, I've seen a lot of Sundays, if you can call it that.
You've seen a lot of Sundays, but have you seen the kind of Sundays that we are seeing at the moment, where virtually on a daily basis, the executive and the judiciary seem to be heading towards some kind of a confrontation, particularly over the collegium system of appointing judges?
I have seen that. But I think it is purely futile. You see, if you want to know the solution, and if anybody wants to know the solution, the government itself has provided its own solution. The previous government, the NDA government, there is a bill, I don't know if you've seen it. It's called the National
Judicial Appointments?
No. It's the Constitutional Amendment Bill of 2003.
Right.
2003. Based on the recommendation of the Venkatacharya Commission. That is the commission over the Constitution. And that gives a complete idea of what really should be there. And if only the law minister would pick it up and brush off the dust from it. It says that a commission, and a commission is certainly a better way of doing things, a national commission with a member which have to be 5, 3 senior most judges of the Supreme Court. Why? Because otherwise it would damage the basic structure of the Constitution, the independence of the judiciary, and therefore hoping that there can be some confabulation. But I don't know why we don't pick it up instead of throwing stones at one another. Those who support the collegium system throw stones at the government starts throwing stones back again toward the judges, and that's all the mess.
So you're asking in a way the government to look back at what the Vajpayee government did. And what the Vajpayee government had proposed in terms of the constitutional
and do you know why
amendment.
and you know why it was not passed? It was not passed only because the Lok Sabha was dissolved. Elections were called.
So you're saying the constitution review suggestion of the Vajpayee government, which proposed 3 of the senior most judges to be along with the government,
along with two
members, along with 2 members of the government, chosen by the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition in consultation.
Yes.
This 5-member committee could have become a space for appointing judges, and the matter can be resolved.
With an office, so that everything would be discussed, would be known. You see, the judge's job, quite frankly, is not for appointment of other judges. That's not been there at all. There has been a historical past to this. Because in the old days, when it was said, consultation with the Chief Justice, amongst all the constitutional functionaries, the only one which required a consultation with anybody was the Chief Justice and in the judiciary. And that was, I mean, you will find Govind Vanda Pant saying in the Lok Sabha that out of 297 appointments were all with the concurrence of the Chief Justice at that time. So I don't know why all this tomfoolery goes on.
I'll tell you why. Because it was post 1993, the second judge's case, which ironically you appeared and won.
That's right.
That resulted in the collegium system coming in place and judges appointing their own. Judges appointing fellow judges.
That's right.
The government in 2015 brought the the NJSC bill and decided that this
but
bill...
it was not the Venkat Chalaya bill.
It was not the Venkat Chalaya bill. That's an important distinction you're making.
Yeah.
But it was a bill that would, in a way, take away some of those powers of the judges to become the sole arbiters of who becomes a judge.
Yeah.
That was struck down in the Supreme Court on the grounds of the basic structure doctrine being affected.
Yes, but why?
Now the government is saying we want to go back to it.
Yes, but you must know why this basic structure. It's not a mantra, not the basic structure mantra. It is because, contrary to what Venkachala had suggested, this was a scheme of 6 members of a commission with 2 non-lawyer, non-judges who would have an overriding veto over judges' suggestions. That was the crux of the matter. That was the crux of this National Judicial Commission. Otherwise, I think that the judges would probably welcome this if you had a commission as Venkachala had suggested.
In fact, some of the judges in the NJSC judgment itself said, yes, the collegium system needs reform.
Of course it does.
And you believe it does need reform.
Of course.
You should have appointees of the government along with the 3 senior most judges.
I'll tell you, Lord Cook, who was a distinguished judge from New Zealand, he was the only judge to be appointed in the House of Lords, in England also. When he was asked to give a lecture here, the title of his lecture was "Where Angels Fear to Tread," and the first line of that is "Fools march in where angels fear to tread." So that was the suggestion. I mean, he therefore made a very deft title.
You know, we have reached a stage, though, where there sees to be mistrust at the moment between the
Absolute
executive and the
mistrust.
judiciary.
But you see, I don't know, Rajdeep, if you read Chagla's memoirs,
Yes.
and he was one of, in my view, the most distinguished judges ever was there in the country from 1950.
MC Chagla.
MC Chagla, outstanding. Now, he writes and he said that he was not very fond of Mr. Morarji Desai, who was the chief minister, nor did their habits concur. But in any view of the matter, every month they'd meet each other at one place or another, either in the Chief Justice's house or in the Chief Minister's bungalow in Bombay, and discuss, because there's a lot to discuss, not merely judges. There's a lot to discuss about where the head of a judiciary and the head of the executive between them. I don't see why there can't be this camaraderie and this one-to-one without the press, without the media, without everybody being there.
Are you saying that the way out, therefore, is either the Prime Minister and the Chief Justice meet regularly, or the Law Minister and the Chief Justice meet regularly?
Absolutely.
Behind closed doors.
Absolutely.
Not by throwing muck at each other, or certainly not by the executive suggesting, for example, as Mr. Rejuju only yesterday has, the Law Minister says judges are not elected.
We've heard that before.
And therefore, because they are not elected, in a way questioning whether they can dictate terms to Parliament, which is elected.
You see, elected judges, I mean, America is the finest example of, because they have a mix. The state judges are elected.
Yes.
The federal judges are not.
Yes.
And they are appointed for life. And you see the difference. They themselves will tell you that and they are weaning away from the election system totally, because it just doesn't work.
But the exact quote of Mr. Rejuju, Mr. Nariman, is this: unlike politicians, a judge does not have to face an election again. But the people are watching you, your judgments, the way judges function, the way you provide justice, the people are watching. Do you see this as an attempt to intimidate the judiciary in some way, to get the judiciary to fall in line?
Quite unnecessarily. This is my regret. You see, there is much to be said in favor of the collegium system. There is very much more to be said against the collegium system. And therefore there has to be a solution. Now, what is the actual solution? And that's what I said. Venkachalaya, in his wisdom, and he was a judge he was one of our
foremost Chief Justice.
In this century, perhaps the best that we've had so far. Outstanding.
So that solution of the three senior most judges, and
in a committee of five,
with the Chief Justice having the final say,
but there's no question. But the three will have the final say.
So you have an odd number of 5.
Yes,
it would be decided by majority. Would those? You see, one of the issues, Mr. Nariman, about the collegium system is that it is opaque.
Yes.
That because of its opacity, people don't know why a particular judge has been appointed or why another one's appointment has been blocked.
That's all over the world.
So should that system be made more transparent?
Yes, of course. They can be made more transparent. In fact, in England now they have people who have to apply for being a judge. You can't be appointed if you don't apply. You say, I'm interested in being a judge of this court.
Should reasons be given? Should the judiciary?
No.
You don't need to give reasons.
No. There's no. I don't think they should be given reasons at all. You must give them some leeway. Some leeway. A little bit of play in the joints. There has to be a play in the joints. I'm very sorry. I don't agree at all. You have to trust somebody. You see, the trouble is, as you are saying, trust has broken down. Now, if people don't meet, of course, trust. If you and I don't meet, every week, if we have something in common and yet we don't see each other, then we go to the press and say nasty things about one another. That's what's happening.
Is it just about a lack of trust, or somewhere an attempt being made to get judges to fall in line? Because you've seen a number of judicial appointments have been blocked.
But you see that
inconvenient appointments are being blocked.
But if people will only realize that's exactly what happened in the emergency, that's exactly what happened when in the first judge's case, after the first judge's case, which is known as the first judge's case in 81, what was said? They said, no, The Constitution only says in consultation with the President will appoint the judges in consultation with the Chief Justice. That doesn't mean anything. That only means he'll have to ask him, Mr. Chief Justice, what do you say? And then appoint whomsoever he chooses. But it didn't happen that way. It didn't happen that way. It happened the way that the judiciary was always respected. And the governments that came, that were there for the first 20 years, were always consulted the Chief Justice, and hardly ever, there one or two, it happened, appointed someone outside the pale of the Chief Justice's diktat.
You know, you mentioned very significantly, Mr. Nariman, the emergency.
Yeah.
Because that is where the system broke down.
Yes.
And that is where the judges, in a way, found themselves subservient to the executive.
And I'll tell you why. Because judges were transferred during the emergency, not for exigencies of service or for any convenience or because there were more judges needed in a particular court, but only because they gave judgments which were unfavorable to the government of the day. This is how it happened. And that's why the collegium system.
That's right. That's the point I was going to come to, that the second judge's case and the collegium came into place because people feared that the excesses of the emergency could not be allowed to be repeated again.
That's right.
Now when you see what's happening, do you fear that there is another attempt by the executive?
Yes, of course I do fear.
To go back to the kind of emergency domination of the judiciary?
I do fear. That is why I make the suggestion that, I mean, there's no hallmark on the collegium system that we must have this system and nothing else. I don't think anybody will say that. But the government says national commission, I say yes, have a national commission. Your own party had proposed it, had a bill, we introduced that bill, that's all.
Is part of the problem also the quality of judges and the fact that some of the judges themselves now have a question mark over them, over the kind of judgments that are delivered, the manner in which some judges make statements, sometimes praising politicians, judges becoming, or chief justices becoming Rajya Sabha MPs within months of their retirement?
We used to call them bandwagon judges in the emergency. Bandwagon judges. Yeah, jump on the bandwagon.
So are we back to bandwagon judges?
That's unfortunate. You see, on both sides, you have to blame both sides. I don't blame one side at all. I blame both sides. I mean, this has been stirring up, and it's something it makes good political mileage, gives good political mileage. That's about all. And I don't think that's good for the country. That's not good for the country.
What would you therefore advise both sides now to do? To step back first,
yes,
and go into dialogue,
yes,
behind closed doors?
Yes.
And you're saying bring back the Venkat Chalaya commission report and go by the bill which suggested that you could have a 5-member commission. Am I right?
And I think the first step, I mean, speaking for myself, I think the law minister was right when he suggested in a letter which came the other day, this was before all this happened, namely that why not have one person who is nominated by the law ministry in the collegium? I mean, that's what he was suggesting. Yes, all right.
You have no problem with that?
I have no problem with that. I don't think anyone should have any problem. Because, you see, when sitting together, instead of writing letters to one another, whether you should be appointed or I should be appointed or I should not be appointed and you should be appointed, instead of all that, can't we sit across the table and discuss this? It's far better to discuss something.
No, the fear is, of course, that the moment you allow someone who is appointed by the government or nominated by the government on any such body that will appoint judges, then the government has a foot in the door. Yeah, and once they have a foot in the door, they will break the door open and decide who becomes a judge and who doesn't.
But that's why I said, why not have constitutionally have a commission? That is what was proposed. That's a simple solution. It's not something out of my head. It's something out of somebody else's head, which I am only repeating.
You know, all of this, Mr. Nariman, is happening at a time when public confidence
in the judiciary has
declined.
Diminished. I can see that.
is that something that also troubles you, that, you know, the public out there is seeing judicial delays mounting.
Yeah.
They're seeing judgments, you know, the buzz in the corridors of certain courts certainly is,
Yes.
it all depends on which bench you get.
Yes, and my son and your relative and so on.
You see,
and so
that's
forth.
part of the problem. Government also is suggesting that nepotism has grown in the collegium
Maybe,
system
maybe.
and a lack of meritocracy.
Maybe. But let's not get, you see, this only means that we are now throwing stones once again at each other.
Yes.
Therefore, there has to be a solution now. I mean, what is the solution? And the quicker we come to a solution, the better. Instead of each of us saying, no, only judges will appoint judges. Because as I told you, I mean, this is a question of angels fear to tread business.
You know, because there are judges who ironically were part of the NJC judgment, like Justice Chelameshwar. He says proceedings of the collegium were absolutely opaque and inaccessible both to the public and history.
You're right.
Justice Kurian Joseph, collegium system lacks transparency,
There you are.
accountability
There you are.
and objectivity.
There
So
you are.
even former judges of the Supreme
Yes,
Court do
absolutely.
not believe it's perfect. Even former CJI,
That's right.
Justice J.S. Verma, author of that 93 judgment that brought in the collegium
Yes,
system,
well,
has said that he believes
Yes.
that there should be a National Judicial Commission
Yes.
which gives a role to the
He
executive.
was absolutely correct. That's why I said that will put an end to everything. You see, the rumor is, and everybody thinks, the judges are against the National Judicial Commission. Or the public is against the national. Yes, the public wants the National Judicial Commission. The National Judicial Commission was discovered, or rather, the idea of it came from a judge, the topmost judge of the country at one time. The government accepted it. Please repeat it. Just follow it.
You're asking Mr. Rijuju to go and read what the Vajpayee government was doing at
Go
the
read
time.
your bill.
To read your bill, your own bill.
Your own bill.
You know, do you fear though that even if you have a commission, there will be cases
There will be.
of people
We're getting up.
getting into the judiciary for reasons
You
other
see,
than merit.
But you must realize that it is always so. Where it's a question of promotion, and the question is not merely of seniority, but of picking somebody from a particular list, which is because they have a seniority list, and you pick up Mr. 99 from one list, and you pick up number 1 from another list. I mean, that causes some disquiet. If I have worked for the judiciary so quite often, but we don't want all that. We are not trying to please persons. The idea of a Supreme Court and a constitutional court is to have the best possible minds in the country. The best possible.
But are you worried? I mean, one is
I am worried,
the debate at the moment is on the collegium system. However, there are several other issues that are equally troubling. We've seen what is called the sealed envelope system, wherein, on important cases, the government gives a sealed envelope, for example, to the judiciary, and judgments are delivered over which there's a huge question mark.
Yes, of course, it's all wrong. I quite agree with you.
You know, there are question marks over the quality of judgments
Yes,
being
and
delivered,
in the name
over
of-
whether there are
yeah.
pressures involved, over the manner in which the senior judges take post-retirement benefits from the government.
Absolutely correct.
Should we be looking at all of this to restructure the judiciary, or only look at the collegium system?
No, we look at everything. Quite right. That's why I said, in the first place, why not have a dialogue? Instead of all this going to the press, you going to the press and I going to the press and I going to the media and so on and bearing my views, why not have a dialogue between the Chief Justice and the Law Minister? What's wrong with that? As I told you, Chagla said that is the best way out of any disquiet amongst human minds.
And you're saying this despite, even if they have differences,
Yeah.
as Mr. Chagla had with Morarji Desai.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if you have differences with the Law Minister and the Prime Minister, or they have a difference of opinion with the Chief Justice,
Yes.
it is possible for the two sides to meet and find a solution.
Find a solution. That's the ideal solution. That's the ideal thing. Instead of my proposing it or you proposing it.
No, let me put it this way. If Fali Nariman is proposing it,
Yeah.
maybe the two sides, just based on on your credibility, may actually agree to your suggestion, hopefully.
I sincerely hope so. I'm beyond all that. I don't practice anymore, but I'm just saying that there's no point now in having all this tutu-meme between the two sides. It's not good for confidence in the country. Not good at all. I mean, you can get some political mileage out of it if you like, but it's not good at all.
In conclusion, as you look back, do you believe the judiciary today is in a better place than when you were in it? Or do you believe that unfortunately, like many other institutions in this country, the judiciary too has got corroded, undermined and lost some of its integrity, spine and independence?
Yeah, I think the latter is correct. Yeah, the latter is correct.
That the judiciary has indeed lost its independence, its spine,
there's
its
no
integrity.
doubt about that. Yes, there's no doubt about it. Quite right. We have practiced since 1950, so I do know. I mean, how courts were looked upon by everybody concerned and how they look upon them today. And as you said, the law's delays are perhaps the greatest. And
delays, corruption.
No, there's another thing. Tribunalization. I'm totally against the tribunalization of the judiciary. Anywhere they want, you set up a tribunal. What's the use of a tribunal? Everybody comes back as a writ to the High Court or the Supreme Court because the confidence of the public is not in tribunals, it's in the courts.
And these are the issues which probably need reform.
Yes.
And these are the issues which need urgent dialogue before the situation completely
collapses. Dialogue is of the essence. Dialogue is of the essence. Absolutely.
I hope Mr. Rejuju, Justice Chandrachud are listening to Fali Nariman. Dialogue is of the essence. Do what Justice MC Chagla and Morarji Desai did. Sit across a table and find a solution. And hopefully, Mr. Nariman might even agree to play interlocutor.
No, I'm too old now. I'm too old.
Sir, you are not old, but you're certainly wise. And I hope that wisdom now is passed on to this generation.
Let's hope so. Let's all pray that it is so.
Mr. Nariman, as always, it's a pleasure talking to you.
No, thanks a lot.
And stay young and keep guiding us. Fali Nariman, giving us, in a way, a perspective to what is becoming an extremely troubling tug-of-war between the judiciary and the executive. Rajdeep Sardesai for India Today. From that interview, which we, as I said, hope that the Law Minister and the Chief Justice are watching, let's turn to the other big stories tonight. Rahul Gandhi, Congress leader, finally today spoke out on his colleague Digvijay Singh's controversial surgical strike remark. Remember, yesterday the Congress leader had suggested that he wanted proof of the surgical strikes of 2016. During a press conference in Jammu, Rahul Gandhi not only distanced himself from Digvijay Singh's remarks, but also called it ridiculous. Listen in.
It is in the culture of our party, right, to allow conversations. And sometimes when those conversations happen, people who have extreme views air their views. In the BJP, in the RSS, there's no conversation. They just decide that this is what it's going to be, and nobody can talk after that. And sometimes, of course, there are people in every conversation who will say ridiculous things. And in this case, I'm sorry to have to say this about a senior leader. He said a ridiculous thing.
Now, while Rahul Gandhi addressed the press conference, remember, one of the key issues as he travels through Jammu and Kashmir is the issue of Kashmiri pundits. Rahul Gandhi met, in fact, with migrant Kashmiri pundits, many of whom are protesting, claiming that many of their demands have not been met. He now has strongly pitched for the restoration of statehood to Jammu and Kashmir. But the big question, of course, is will the Kashmiri pundits really get their due? Take a look.
As Bharat Jodo Yatra nears the finishing line, Rahul Gandhi shifts focus to Kashmiri pundits. The Congress MP met a delegation of Kashmiri pundits just days after the twin terror blasts, Rock Narwal and Rajouri. The pundit delegation relayed their main concerns. They have not received their salaries from the government for months.
They are just using the Kashmiri pundits only for the vote politics, nothing else. They have always used us. The name of Kashmiri pundits, this thing has been happened. Only when election comes, they get activated regarding Kashmiri pundits.
And targeted killings are on the rise.
एक एम्प्लॉयज का इशू है जो पिछले 6 महीने से धरना पे बैठे हैं जिसकी सैलरीज बंद है और गवर्नमेंट इज वेरी एडमेंट दैट पहले आप ज्वाइन कीजिए वहाँ पे आप वहाँ पे मीटिंग्स के टारगेट बन जाइए.
In his response, Rahul Gandhi minced no words. The Congress MP trained guns at the BJP at separate public meetings, claiming the ruling party only used the Kashmiri pundits for vote bank politics.
वो मेरे पास आए और मैं उनकी बात ना उठाऊं तो फिर वो प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगी. तो अगर हम यात्रा कर रहे हैं और लोग हमें बातें बता रहे हैं, हमें वो बातें तो उठानी पड़ेंगी.
The Congress has now asked the Kashmiri Pandit community for a 3-point memorandum that will be handed over to the Prime Minister. Meanwhile, BJP on Tuesday targeted the Congress, demanding the Grand Old Party to make its stand clear on Article 370.
धारा 370 अतीत है, समझे? वो संविधान के द्वारा हो गया और हम बहुत विनम्रता से राहुल गांधी आपको चुनौती देते हैं. 370 एक संवैधानिक प्रक्रिया के तहत निरस्त हुआ है, उसके लिए 2/3 बहुमत चाहिए. तो राहुल गांधी जी, क्या आपको लगता है कि कभी 2/3 बहुमत आपको मिलेगा? एक बार खुलकर तो बात करिए. ये एडहॉक कमेंट क्या करते हैं?
While Rahul Gandhi raised the emotional issue of rehabilitation of Kashmiri Pandits, his message got lost in the din over the remarks of the party leader Digvijay Singh doubting 2016 surgical strike. Bureau Report, India Today.
So will the plight of the Kashmiri Pandits get lost in a political tug of war? Sanju Verma, BJP's spokesperson, Salman Soz, Congress spokesperson, also from the valley, Sushant Dhar is a Kashmiri Pandit. Appreciate all of you joining us. Before I come to the politicians, I want to come to you, Sushant. We have seen many Kashmiri Pandits protesting, striking for over a month now. Many of them claim government employees have not got their salaries. Many of them saying they have not got the safety they were promised. How do you respond when you see the situation on the ground? Do you have faith in these political parties or not?
Rajdeep, political parties across the country have used the tragedy of Kashmiri Pandits, unfortunately, for their political gains, be it BJP or be it Congress. Unfortunately, Kashmiri Pandit employees who have been struggling, battling on the roads for the past 260 days, almost a year now, protesting for their life. What is their demand? They are demanding government to address their safety and security concerns. They are demanding right life that comes under the Constitution of India. But the LG administration, instead of putting employees, it's forcing them to join back in the valley.
So you're saying that the basic core demands, particularly of the Kashmiri Pandit employees in the valley, have not been met. Sanju Verma, you want to respond before I come to Salman Soz? Because the BJP has said, look, we have the interests of Kashmiri Pandits at heart. The fact is, many of them have been striking since May last year and still claim their demands were not met. Many of them met Rahul Gandhi saying the BJP government made various promises, none of which have been met.
You know, Rajdeep, much as I would not like to politicize the rehabilitation of Kashmiri Pandits, I will not shy away from some hard facts that need to be told. Point number one, I think, for the last so many decades and for the longest time, there was not even a debate or a discussion on the horrific 1990 genocide of Kashmiri Hindus, as in Kashmiri Pandits. I think in the last 2-3 years, the fact that we've taken cognizance of the problem, I think that's the start. Because to be able to find a solution to a problem, you first need to take cognizance that the problem indeed exists.
Sanju Verma, in 2014 Lok Sabha manifesto, BJP said return of Kashmiri Pandits to the land of their ancestors with full dignity, security and assured livelihood. We are 8 years later. It's 8 years.
Can I finish?
No, how long are they going to wait?
Can I finish? Rajdeep Sardesai, can I finish?
Yes.
It's my turn to speak.
Please.
You can heckle me after I'm done. Thank you. Let me now, say a couple of things. I think the best way to rehabilitate pundits who, due to brutal, rabid Islamists, had to flee the valley. I will not even go into the gory details of, BK Ganju or Tikalal Taplu or Girija Tikku. I have this to say, that I think the big problem in the valley is not the fact that Article 370 has been abrogated. If you show me 10 people talking to Rahul Gandhi, I can tell you there are hundreds and thousands of people, including Kashmiri pundits, who feel that abrogation of Article 370 is the best decision taken in the last 70 or 75 odd years to bring normalcy to the valley. And I will say this, that the reason why we are seeing the kind of lone wolf attacks that we continue to see is because politicians like Rahul Gandhi, politicians like Farooq Abdullah, Omar Abdullah, politicians from the Congress, ilk, they provide intellectual cover fire to terrorists. Tell me one thing, when an ML Bindru is attacked, or when, a Supinder Kaur or a Deepak Chand are profiled as Hindus and then shot in cold blood, have you ever seen any of the leaders from Kashmir Valley condemning the rabid Islamists who are behind this attack?
Now Sanju Verma, you must get your facts right. Farooq Abdullah, among others, was the first to condemn many killings, as do all within the valley. You see, we must stop spreading lies. You must stop spreading lies. Sanju Verma, on sensitive issues, do not spread lies. You must stop these lies. You spread lies on the basis of sensitive issues. Salman Soos, however, please put her audio down. Salman Soos, the question comes on Article 370. There Sanju Verma claims that it's all very well for Rahul Gandhi to say I'm reaching out to Kashmiri pundits, but the belief is that Article 370, according to the BJP, was an issue which was a major concern. That's been removed, and therefore Kashmiri pundits feel that they have a government they can dialogue with. They don't feel a sense of separateness, which they felt earlier.
Well, first of all, Rajdeep, I don't really want to get into a tutu beme with Sanju. I think she said everything except she didn't talk about the real issue. The real issue is with our fellow panelist. The real issue is about this delegation of Kashmiri pundits, and not just the delegation of Kashmiri pundits, by the way. Kashmiri pundits who are protesting, I mean, not just these 10 people. There are so many people for protesting, have been protesting for more than 200 days. And what are they protesting about? What is the immediate, there are many issues that they have, many genuine issues that they have. But the proximate issue is the following, that there is great insecurity for them in the valley. The government has failed to provide the kind of security that would allow them to live their lives freely. And but that insecurity is not,
with due regard, that insecurity is not something post-2014. You see,
no, it's not. No, I understand. But what I'm saying is, then once that insecurity comes in, what should a reasonable person do? The reasonable person says, I'm going to protect my family and myself, and I'm going to go to Jammu and say, okay, I'll stay there for some time till the situation improves so that I can go back. But the situation has not improved clearly. Then what does the Lieutenant Governor do? He basically he gives an ultimatum that, look, we're not going to be paying you salaries. If you don't do any work, you won't get it. You won't get paid. It's the kind of heartless thing to say to a community that has suffered so much over the years.
No, so what would you suggest? It's very easy to be in the. Now, 1 minute, Sanju Verma. What would you know? Sanju Verma, audio down. What would you suggest, Salman Soos?
My suggestion is, first of all, the Lieutenant Governor, and by the way, there's another grievance that the community has about remarks by the Lieutenant Governor, where apparently he told them that they should not be begging. Now, those are not the kinds of words that the Lieutenant Governor should be using against a community that is suffering. An immediate thing that they can do is to release the salaries to these employees who are in Jammu right now, who are not able to go to Srinagar because it has not been safe for them. And then the government has to come and have a dialogue with them and try and understand how safety and security can be ensured to the satisfaction of the Kashmiri Pandit community, especially those government employees who are posted in Kashmir. Until and unless that happens, How can you tell them to go and start working? And how dare the government keep their salaries from being paid?
Can I just get in my while the politicians claim we will continue to raise the temperature, the fact is, Sushant Dhar, since when have many Kashmiri Pandit government employees not got their salaries? The government says if you don't work, you won't get a salary.
See, the government must take into account that more than 25 Hindus have been killed in Kashmir for the past 2 years, which includes 5 government employees who were killed right at their working places. That includes 2 government employees from Prime Minister's Rehabilitation Package scheme. So it's our request to the government to take this issue with sensitivity and empathy.
So you're saying take
I will give employees to join back. I will give normalcy claims in mainland India.
Sure, Sanju Verma, I'll give you 30 seconds, and I mean 30 seconds. Empathy is a word missing. You see, you can't tell the government employees, why are you begging? You can't tell the government employees come back to work despite without alleviating their sense of fear. Someone has to show empathy. थोड़ा हमदर्दी दिखानी पड़ेगी संजू वर्मा जी, थोड़ी हमदर्दी. चुनाव के टाइम पे everybody wants Kashmiri Pandits votes.
राजदीप, what I fail to understand है कि आप कभी सुधरोगे नहीं. आपको
मैं बिल्कुल नहीं सुधरता.
रिस्पांसिबिलिटी कि आप मुझसे सवाल पूछो. आप तो सवाल पूछना कम और यहाँ पर बैठकर कांग्रेस की पहरेदारी कर रहे हो.
मैं किसी की पहरेदारी नहीं कर रहा हूँ, मैडम. You must stop this. You must stop this. This is absolute rubbish. You come on my show, make these stupid statements.
You stop putting words into my mouth.
I asked you a simple question. You don't answer it. Where is the empathy? Where is the empathy?
Can I answer?
Yes. 30 seconds.
I don't need a bhashan or empathy from you. Who are the people who are giving a bhashan on empathy today to Sanju Verma and to the BJP? People who said that Kashmir Files is a propaganda movie. And these are people who are not genocide deniers. I call them genocide enablers. Now let me come to the moot point. You ask me, what have we done? When you say we, I mean the BJP for Kashmiri Pandits. 80,000 crore development package announced by Modi government in 2015, more than 77% of that has been implemented. More than 4 lakh Kashmiris have been given domicile certificates. More than 3 lakh Kashmiris today get the benefits of the 7th Pay Commission. More than 6,000 Kashmiri Pandits have been given government jobs, and 20,000 more government jobs have been advertised for.
Ma'am, the Prime Minister's special package for Kashmiri Pandits created 6,000 jobs. Some of them were announced when Manmohan Singh was PM.
30 seconds without you interrupting.
Yes.
I want to simply ask you to ask one question to the Congress panelists. I am not interested in a tutu manner.
Right, tell me.
Will he today on Rajdeep Sardesai's show, Salman Sooz's father, Saifuddin Sooz in 2018 said Kashmiris would be happier being independent. Basically, he was calling for further balkanization of India. And you sit here and tell me that Rahul Gandhi to Kashmiriyon ke liye bahut kuch kar rahe hain.
You made your point. Let him answer. Let him answer now.
Let me.
Salman Soz, does the Congress? What is the Congress's view on Kashmir?
Do you condemn rabid Islamists?
Do you condemn rabid Islamists, Salman Soz? Okay, volume down. Do you condemn rabid Islamists who target Kashmiri Pandits? Yes or no?
I don't.
Yes or no?
Anybody who targets Kashmiri Pandits, of course you condemn. Rajdeep, what kind of a question is this? Anybody who targets Kashmiri Pandits or anybody else, of course they deserve our scorn. I don't want to get into Sanju Verma's politics. Her politics is Ghatia politics. I'm here to talk about Kashmiri Pandits, the protesting Kashmiri Pandits who deserve a life of dignity and security.
Okay.
And that is not being provided by the government. Let me just add here, and you alluded to this, Rajdeep, that the Kashmiri Pandit rehabilitation packages that were started by Dr. Manmohan Singh, that's the blueprint. There's nothing new from this government. Okay. Now, one thing they could have done is if during this time, when there were these 20 plus killings, by the way, during Dr. Manmohan Singh's time, if I'm not mistaken, in his 10 years, there was perhaps 1 killing. And even that is too much. But in the last couple of years, more than 20 killings have taken place. That means it is natural to be fearful. It is natural to be scared. So in this time, you cannot tell people, if you do not work, you will not get paid. This is a time when you go and say, support them and say, we will pay you, your jobs are safe, don't worry, we'll try and figure out a way in which you will be safe in Kashmir.
Okay,
and
I'm
we'll
going to
talk
leave it.
about it. And only when you're satisfied, then you will go to Kashmir.
Okay, I've heard both of you. As I said, the one thing sometimes that has been missing in the past is empathy. What the Kashmiri pundits, many of whom have not got their salaries for months on end, are looking for is not just security, but empathy. I want to leave it there, ma'am. I have run out of time. I will surely have you on another show at another time. I appreciate your joining us. Now you know why my hair has turned grey. Let's take a break. When we return, RRR gets an Oscar nomination for Natu Natu in the Best Song category. More on the other side. You're watching the news today. News with some noise.
The Apple iPhone 14 is already being manufactured in India. And now in one of the biggest boosts for Make in India, the Tata Group is all set to become the first Indian manufacturer of the high-tech handset in the world. According to sources, the group has been in talks to acquire a plant assembling iPhones. The plant is 50 km east of Bengaluru and is run by Taiwan's Wistron. The two have reportedly been in talks for months, and the deal is expected to be signed as early as March. Wistron is one of the 3 Taiwanese iPhone manufacturers in India. The others are Foxconn and Pegatron. Reports say Tata could become a majority shareholder in a joint venture between the two. And while Tata is expected to oversee the manufacturing operations, Wistron would lend support. The plant is an area of 2.2 million square foot with 8 iPhone assembly lines. The factory employs nearly 10,000 workers, including some highly skilled engineers and other staff. If the deal goes through, as a bonus, Tata will also be eligible for incentives under the government's production-linked incentive scheme from the new financial year. Meanwhile, Tata is deepening its ties with Apple elsewhere as well. It has accelerated hiring in its factory in Hosur near Bengaluru, where it produces iPhone components. The company has also announced that it will launch 100 Apple stores. For Apple, it's a win-win situation. The tech giant has been on the lookout for alternate manufacturing hubs since its supplies out of China were disrupted. First due to the draconian COVID lockdowns, then because of unrest at its largest plant run by Foxconn. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
Welcome back. We've run almost completely out of time tonight on the news today, but here's a story to cheer us all up at the very end. Natu Natu from RRR has once again made India proud. Remember, it won a Golden Globe a couple of weeks ago for Best Original Song. Now it's been nominated at the prestigious Academy Awards that were the shortlist nominations announced today. And Rajamouli's magnum opus has been nominated. Also nominated is an Indian documentary, All That Breathes, that looks at issues of pollution, and a short documentary, The Elephant Whisperers, that is also in the race for the Oscars. So 3 Indian entries are in the short list for the Indian Oscars. We wish them all well. Thanks for watching. You stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubhratri, Jai Hind, Namaskar.
Before I talk about the market, Sanjeev, I want to ask you about your stance on financials, private sector financials at this point, because we've seen a couple of numbers, Bajaj Finance first, which created a bit of flutter, and then ICICI Bank. Are you comfortable keeping your overweight stance on financials, or would you want to change it in any way?
No, then as of now, we are quite okay with it in the sense, both on an absolute basis and relative basis, the financial sector looks okay. So on an absolute basis, if you look at the valuations of the tier one banks, most of them are actually quite reasonable. Look at an ICICI Bank, for example, or an HDFC Bank, both of them would be trading at about 2.4 times March 24 book, adjusted for the value of their non-banking businesses. So it look quite okay. If you look at, let's say, an Axis or an IndusInd, Axis about 2 times 1 year forward, so the IndusInd about 1.6 times. So in fact, I think there's still probably some scope relating as far as the next lot of tier one banks are concerned. That is an Axis or an IndusInd. If you look at let's say the tier two banks, you put all the PSU banks over there, some of the smaller private banks, again, valuation are very reasonable. SBI is about 1.2 times, again, 12-month forward basis. Most of the other PSU banks are, one time that is bought, and others are actually lower than 1 time price to book. So I don't see too much of an issue on valuation to start with. And more important, at least for the next 2 years, we don't see, any signs of a credit quality deterioration that we're not aware of as of now. So credit quality should not be an issue. Credit growth is picking up. So if I put everything together, the banking sector does look quite okay on an absolute basis.
What's your clear underweight call for 2023, this calendar year? What are the sectors that you're avoiding?
So as of now, largely on the discretionary side. So that includes automobiles, barring a few names here and there. A large section of the consumer durables pack. And my concern over there is both a combination of shorter-term slowdown, which is probably not factored into analyst numbers. When I look at consensus numbers, they still look very, very high to me. So you'll probably see some downgrades, which means the multiples are actually even higher than what we are looking at currently. The multiples are high to start with. They're significantly higher than pre-COVID levels. And assuming our thesis is correct of finding downgrades, then the multiples are actually even higher than what the street is building in currently. So that's one big risk in the shorter term. Also in the medium term, starting to get a bit concerned about I don't know it's the business models of these companies, but many of these companies have fantastic moats, and that's one of the reasons why investors have been willing to give very high multiples for these stocks. But of late, what we are seeing is some cracks starting to emerge in the business models, business modes that people thought were completely unbreachable. Some investors have started to have rethink. That could result in some amount of derating in the multiples as we go forward.
Past few months have been rough for several big-ticket crypto companies.